I want to share with you a little message as we close somewhat of a crazy week with the COVID-19 coronavirus, which is taking over the world and creating tremendous panic and anxiety and fear, taking so many lives, endangering others. They tell a story of the king. This king had a close friend, and they would go hunting together. That was their hobby that they shared. But this friend would always tell his king, everything is for the good. Everything is for the good. No matter what would happen, he would turn to the king and say, it's all for the good. It's going to be good. He was super optimistic. One day, the king's hunting with this optimistic fellow, and the king, the rope of the bow and arrow snapped, and the arrow went into the king's thumb, and it took off the king's thumb. The first thing the optimistic friend says, it's for the good, it's good. The king looks at his friend and says, you were crazy, you passed the line. He orders to throw him into prison. The man's in prison, and the king continues hunting, only this time by himself. Months go by, and the king's out in the forest himself, and he wanders off the path and gets lost, only to be found by a group of cannibals. And they tie him, and they're singing and dancing and celebrating that they found a human being. And they tie him to a tree, and they tell him that, that they're going to kill him and they're going to eat him, etc. And if he wants, he should make his final prayers. Tied to the tree, the king is praying. He feels it's his final moments. The evening comes, and the cannibals all get around the king, and they're untying him from the tree. They're ready to kill him and eat him. And they realize that he's missing a thumb. So they look at each other, and they're all disappointed, and they said, no, you could go. We only eat and choose the best. If you have a blemish, if you're missing a thumb, we don't eat you. You're not a good candidate. So they let him go. The king thinks to himself, and he says, my friend was right. My friend said when my thumb was taken off by the bow and arrow, that it was for the good. Oh my God, he was right. And look, I threw him into prison and he rotted away. For months, he gets his friend. He pulled him out of prison, and he tells his friend, you saved my life. You were right. I'm sorry. And he tells him the whole story. Because I didn't have a thumb, that's why I was set free and I was not killed. I am so sorry, the king tells his friend, that I made you stay in prison for so many months and I threw you in prison. So his friend turns to the king and says, don't worry, it's all for the good. So the king looks at him and says, no, stop with that. What, it's all for the good? So he raises his 10 little fingers and he says, you don't get it. I have 10 fingers. And if I wasn't in prison, chances are I would be with you. And if I would be with you, I would end up in their soup for dinner. You see, my friends, we always could choose to be optimistic and to look for the light at the end of the tunnel and maintain our faith and to hope and pray for a better tomorrow. Jews, in the most difficult times, never lost their faith in God and their faith in humanity and their faith in a better, brighter future. Throughout our history, that's what we've been known for, and that's what we've done best. And today, we need to continue to do that, to remain optimistic, strong, and powerful as we march forward through these trying times. I want to share with you a message from this week's Torah portions, which unfortunately in many synagogues around the world won't be read in the minyan. So perhaps we could take a moment and reflect on this week's Torah portions. The Torah is the most popular book in the world. James Chapman studied the 10 most popular books in the world, and the Bible comes out number one. He says that in the last 50 years, 3.9 billion Bibles were sold. Even Harry Potter only sold 400 million copies. So 3.9 billion Bibles means that there's enough Bibles to give to every other person in the world. So every 2 people could have a Bible. That's how many copies were sold in the last 50 years. So we are the people of the book. We have to turn to our dear Torah, which kept us going through the most challenging times of all of history. The great Sadia Gaon said, "Umaseinu einena umma ki im b'toraseha." Our nation is only a nation by virtue of its Torah. The Torah is what kept the people of Israel alive and well throughout our history. So let's take a look at this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is actually a double Torah portion, and we finished the book of Exodus, Vayakel and Pekudei. And it's interesting that exactly 40 years ago, the Rebbe in a talk said that the names of the Torah portion are seemingly opposites. You see, Vayakel means to gather, everyone together, collectively together. Pekude means to count each and every single one individually. You see, when you put everyone together, you're not focusing on the individuality. Everyone's together. So by definition, Vayakel, which means to gather everyone and putting them all together, excludes and does not pay any attention on the individuality. Pekude, which means to count, pays all the attention on the individual while you count each and every single individual. So what is it? Is it the togetherness, or is it counting each and every single individual while every single individual is alone, its own entity? You see, my friends, I think that this itself is very telling in our current times. We're asked to be Pekude. We're asked to quarantine ourselves, our families, our loved ones together, and to try to remain indoors as much as we can. Pekude, take yourself, take your family, go into your home, and don't Vayakel, don't gather together. Remain individual, alone, separate, isolated, quarantined. But my friends, if we think and try and put the effort, we could still maintain the Vayakel, the togetherness. Only now we need creativity. Now we need extra emphasis and extra strength and extra effort. You see, we have to remain one people with unity, with love, with care for one another. And while we are Pekude, individually, physically separated one from another and quarantined, we must put tremendous effort in Vayakel, in still being one people together. How is that? Through technology, thank God. Reach out to someone, pick up the phone, call somebody, FaceTime with family, FaceTime with friends, reach out to people in need, reach out to seniors,